Welcome to week 29 of It's Sportsis. Let's get to it.
All right. So it is currently April 27th, Christine. Obviously, as we always tell you guys, we record on Tuesdays. But when this is live, it will be April 29th, which is the
NFL Draft.
It is the NFL Draft. So I wanted to take this opportunity to give you guys all of the drama, everything that I'm out of breath.
We just did jumping jacks before we got on here because we were both like, all right. We got to get in the mood. We were both super busy before we just sat down to start recording. So Sarah was like, let's get up and do a couple.
A little jumping jacks to get us going. But now I'm out of breath. Okay.
I think my heart rate's up to like 152.
See? Okay. I don't know what mine is, but it's definitely pounding. So I need to catch my breath. But
so NFL draft starts on
Thursday, April 29th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it runs the 29th, the 30th, and May 1st. So it's a 3-day event, and it will be in Cleveland, Ohio. So
got it. So what is it?
Yeah. So the NFL draft is where the NFL teams, all NFL teams, choose players coming out of college to be on their team based on the position that the NFL team needs. So teams line up 1 through 32. And they choose what the team thinks is the best player coming out of college, dodgeball style, as I call it, right? So it's like bleacher ball, where like all the players are like lining up on the wall, and then the teams are going through being like, I want you on my team, and the next team's like, I want you on my team, right? So it's like they all stack up like 1 through 32 and then choose, like I said, the available teams or the available players coming out of college.
Okay, so then who gets to go first?
Yeah, so the worst team from last year goes first, and then the best team from last year goes last. There are going to be some like variables there, like during free agency there were some trades that happened, and there were draft picks that were included, and this is where those trades come in handy, right? So a very standard year would be the worst team would go first and the best team would go last, 32nd, and then it would just go in descending order from first to 32nd based on how bad your team was to how good your team was. But
so this year the Jacksonville Jaguars were the worst team, so they get to go first in the draft, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The very best team is the team that won the Super Bowl, which is the
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So they get to go last.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And how many rounds are there in the draft?
So there are 7 rounds, but the most like televised and what you'll see, it basically looks like a stock exchange if you guys watch it. Like it has like the ticker going across the bottom, and like as players are available, like they'll start disappearing. You'll see that it'll be like next up, and so it'll show you the team that's picking next. And so the most televised round is going to be the first round. And the most popular term that you'll hear is a first round draft pick, because that is every college player's dream, is to be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. And all of the guys that think that they're going in the first round, you'll see them. Like, I think this year, usually they'll have the first round draft picks at tables at the arena, but I think like last year they did it all remotely, and
so they're not doing it remotely this year.
They're doing it all in person.
Oh no, I thought that's what you were getting to. I thought you were about to say that it's all going to be in person this year.
Well, I know that they're selling tickets to the draft. So, I mean, spectators can go. I just don't know about the players and their families.
Because they're going to probably give people the option, whether if you want to go or you just want to stay at home if you're not.
Yeah. So historically, I'll tell you historically, and then I'll kind of tell you what happened last year. And then I have to admit, I don't know what they're going to do this year. So you'll just have to tune in and find out. But historically, you pretty much know as a college player, if you're going to go in the first round. If there are teams that have reached out to you, that have watched you practice, that have followed you through your workouts, that have reached out to you and told you, that they want you on their team, or, ESPN's talking a lot about it too. So like I said, there is a pretty solid list of those 32 players that are going to go in the first round.
What I'm really curious about is there's so many quarterbacks this year going through the draft. So like 5 quarterbacks are going through in the first round, and I'm so curious to see where they all go to. Yes. Obviously, we know Trevor Lawrence is number 1, right? We've talked about Tank for Trevor throughout the regular season of NFL. It's been a big deal. It was a big deal whenever Jacksonville got first draft pick because they were technically the worst because the Jets won their one game. But if the Jets would have lost their game, they would have gone first.
And they would have gotten Trevor Lawrence.
Yes. They would have gotten Trevor Lawrence, and the Carolina Panthers just got Sam Darnold from the Jets. So really they need a good quarterback. So I'm very curious to see with all these quarterbacks going out in the first round, where they're all going to go.
Yes, I know. I'm very, very interested to see that too. And we're going to be making projections later. We've got a very special guest that's joining us a little bit later on today. So we're going to save the Who You Got segment for when Casey joins us. But what's a little bit different this year, Christine, is the word eligibility. So when y'all are watching the draft on Thursday, you will hear the word eligibility a lot. And the reason is because the NCAA allowed their players, the football players, really any college sport player from the 2020-2021 season due to the pandemic to have an additional year of eligibility. So historically speaking, you have to play.
What does that mean?
Eligibility is basically like when are you eligible to go pro?
Got it. Okay.
Got it.
So
historically, yes, you play for a college team for 3 years and you would have to, let's say you're a junior. Let's think very, very standard basic language. You go in as a freshman, you play football as a freshman, you play your sophomore and junior year. And if you decide you are that good after your junior year, you can what is called declare for the NFL draft. So since you're just a junior, it's not assumed that you're going to go into the NFL. So you have to declare. Basically, it's just a legitimate notification to both your college and the NFL that, hey, I'm not going back to college for my 4th year. I want to be pro. Okay.
But what happens if what if they declare their eligibility and they don't get picked up in that year? Are they already declaring that they're not going back to college? So then they're screwed out of 1 year of college?
So a lot of guys, not a lot, I honestly don't know this stat. I was going to say a lot of guys try and graduate in 3 years just so that they can be eligible after their 3rd year.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah. But I would say if somebody declared for the NFL draft after their 3rd year, usually that 3rd year, if you're declaring after a 3rd year, it's because you most likely have a good idea that you're going to be picked up, right? But to answer your question, if you declare and you are not chosen during the 7 rounds of the NFL draft, you are what's called an undrafted free agent. So what these guys will do is they have managers, they have agents, they'll try and stay in contact with teams. And there are some really popular players and successful players that have been undrafted free agents that have made huge money in the NFL.
Right.
But at that point, you have not officially secured your spot on a team. And so you have to be invited to training camp from a pro team. So your agent, you are working to send, film, whatever you need to send to the team to say, hey, I know you missed me during the draft, but I'm now an undrafted free agent. I want to at least come to training camp with you guys. And
I may be wrong, but wasn't Jordan Graham and Tony Romo part of that? I know Jordan Graham used to play basketball and then somehow landed himself in the NFL.
Who's Jordan Graham?
He played for the Saints. He kind of bounced around. Or not Jordan Graham, Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham. Yes.
Jimmy Graham. Sorry, I know a Jordan Graham from college. Jimmy Graham used to play basketball all through college and then somehow landed himself in the NFL. And I never understood how that worked.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can play any college sport if you want to and declare for the NFL draft. It's pretty rare, but you will see some basketball players. They'll be like really good tight ends. They've got, you think, like receivers. So I don't want to use like too detailed of terminology, but
So
a
they
tight
catch
end.
the ball.
Exactly. A tight end is a receiver. It's a bigger receiver. They also have got other roles on the team, but for the sake of being simple, they will sometimes look at basketball players because they have really yes, they've got ups, they've got good hands.
They're
And
tall,
so
they're big. Some of them are at
yes,
least.
that's
Jimmy
right.
Graham
That's
was
right.
for
They're very
sure.
athletic. They run a lot. And so you know, those skills translate really well to the receiver position. So yes, Jimmy Graham, Christine, for to back to your example, I'm not sure if he was an undrafted free agent, but I do know that he played a different sport in college before he went
Okay.
to the NFL. But Tony Romo was an undrafted free agent and went on to make over $100 million with the Dallas Cowboys, which is kind of cool.
So he was an undrafted. So Tony Romo went into the draft out of college, declared his eligibility, was not picked up in any of the 7 rounds. So he became an undrafted free agent.
That's correct.
And then how does he get back? So if he's not picked, where does he go and how does he get back in?
Yeah. So he is really leaning on his manager, his agent, which all of them who have declared for the NFL draft have. And I think they make money. And I don't know the exact setup for this. If you do, holla, holla, holla. But the managers, the agents of these potential pro athletes will reach out to the teams and say, my player, you know, my client didn't get picked up. Here's his here's what he's good at. Here's why he would be a good fit for your team. Here's some of his film. And a lot of those guys will get invited to training camp with a pro team.
Okay.
So training camp is just like an official tryout.
Okay, so if players that are picked up, let's say Trevor Lawrence, he's going first in the NFL draft this year.
Yep.
Picked up by the Jaguars, is he going to have to go to training camp and prove himself, or like how does that work?
I mean, it's definitely like you are guaranteed like your contract going into your first year if you're selected in like any of the draft spots.
It's like your proving year.
Sorry?
It's like your proving year, right? Because they don't the contracts are shorter.
For your rookie contracts, that's correct. And you're not making as much money for sure. I mean, you're still growing. You're young, right? I mean, they're like in their 20s.
They just graduated, yeah.
So to answer your question, so if a player is chosen in these 7 rounds of the NFL draft, it's going to be very rare that an NFL team is going to make a selection on a rookie, on a college player, and that player not make the team after training camp. That said, it's not impossible. So these rookie players that are picked up during the draft, during those 7 rounds, typically get a signing bonus. And the rest of their contract is not going to be guaranteed until they actually start playing on the team. That said, if an undrafted free agent comes in and blows the drafted player
at training camp,
it's their time to shine. That's right. So
okay, got it. That makes sense. So back to eligibility. You kind of touched on that COVID has increased eligibility this year, or are there some changes to eligibility? So what exactly did you mean?
Yes. Okay. So I gave the very simple explanation of a player goes in, plays freshman, sophomore, junior year. At that point, they can claim or they can declare for the NFL draft, right? Another example in like a standard year is a player comes in as a freshman. Their freshman year, they redshirt, which basically means I'm taking my freshman year off. I'm still going to work out with the team. I'm still going to practice with the team, but I'm not going to play.
Why would they do that?
Because they want to develop. They want an additional year. Maybe there's a player that is already in that position that's doing really well, then you're not going to get any playing time. And so you want a red shirt so that your 3 years of eligibility are all of your stats are the best that they could be. You're not a backup quarterback, you're the quarterback. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So whenever you say 3 years of eligibility, you have to have 3 years playing in college in order to declare for the NFL draft. So
Yes.
those 3 years of them playing is where they accumulate and add up all of their stats from them playing and, come up with their resume per se.
Yes.
To then declare for the NFL draft.
Yep. So you come in as a freshman, but you redshirt, you're not playing any games, but then you play your sophomore, junior, and senior year. At that point, you would have to declare for the NFL draft because you've only had 3 years of eligibility, or you've only had 3 years on the team, which makes you eligible, right?
Right.
Okay. Another example is you come in as a freshman, you play your freshman year, you play your sophomore, junior, and senior year. At the end of your senior year, you've already had 4 years of eligibility. You've already had 4 years playing for your team. You are considered a senior and you are automatically entered into the NFL draft.
Okay, so you can have 3 or 4 years in college. It doesn't just have to be 3.
You have to declare after 3 years. You are automatically entered after 4.
Okay. So with the COVID changes, why would a student decide to go back, or sorry, why would a player decide to go back to college for an additional year?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to answer a question first, and then I'm going to answer that question, right? So let's take the standard freshman through senior candidate who has played for 4 years, right? Like I said, at that point, you're automatically entered into the NFL draft historically. But this year, because the NCAA is giving all of the players the option for a 5th year, the teams had to, or the player had to let the NFL know whether they wanted to exercise the option for their 5th year of eligibility by, I think it was the end of January. So the NFL had to wait longer to be able to see the pool of players that they actually had because of this additional year of eligibility. So it kind of threw a wrench in like the standard process for choosing players that are coming out of college.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So
I feel so the players who weren't really able to play, like let's say like the players that were, I guess, why would you want to extend the 5th year is really what I'm trying to get at.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. So you asked that question before. So the COVID schedule, the COVID season, maybe you got sick, right? And you couldn't play for like 2 weeks or whatever. So the season was not only spotty. Some of these teams didn't play at all. Some of these teams played half their schedule. Some of their teams played a schedule that they weren't planning on having. It was just a very bizarre year for football specifically. But then also, like I said, let's say you got COVID and you played a game, but you might have missed it.
And that lingers with you for months. You probably weren't on your A game. That makes sense.
Exactly. So the NCAA said, okay, we're leaving it up to the players to decide. If you think you're leaving college, setting yourself up for success on, for your next step in the NFL or in professional career, then great. If not, then we're going to give you 1 extra year. So that 5th year of eligibility to come back, pad your stat line, prove yourself, whatever. And then at that point you can leave and be a professional athlete if you would like to.
So really, ideally, let's take COVID out of it. Ideally, the sooner you can become eligible and declare for the draft, you take it.
I mean, that's my theory, Christine. Yeah, like I always think like if you have the opportunity to make money at playing a sport,
do it,
right? Like there's injuries. You hear about these players, like literally you guys, they're in the NFL, there is an injury report like pages long every single week. And it's very similar in college. I mean, it's just a very violent sport, which we've talked about in the past too. And so, if you're good and you after 3 years, if maybe, graduating college is your goal, like you can shove that into 3 years and still have, leave on good terms, if you will, and be able to go pro. But there are some players who will go back for that 4th year, but you risk injuring yourself, which will ruin your career forever. So
yeah, it's a gamble.
yes, it is a gamble, right? So if they want to go back, they want to pad their stats, they think they could do better in college and make more money off of it in the NFL, then they'll go back for their 4th year, or in this case, their 5th year, right? But you run the gamble, you run the risk of getting injured and ruining your professional career forever. So it's kind of a difficult decision to make.
So back to the draft, you touched on, there's 7 rounds, 32 teams pick each round. So is there any way for these teams to shift the order that they pick?
Yeah, I think we touched on it just a little bit earlier, but yes, there will be teams. I think the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins have done it. There are teams you'll hear with the 3rd pick of the 2021 NFL draft, the blah, blah, blah chooses, and that wasn't the original order. It's because they traded a player earlier in the season, or they traded a player last season and they gave up a draft pick for this year. And so you'll see that order change. Like I said, the most standard way to think about it is, worst team goes first, best team goes last, and then everything else in between. But there will be some switcheroonies in there,
I think,
because they'll trade some players every once in a while and include draft picks in the trade.
So if you guys have ever watched the NFL draft, it's really funny because right as it starts, you'll see Roger Goodell. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
You'll see Roger Goodell come out and he's always booed. And I'm sorry, Sarah, he does look like a thumb. He's very bald, right? Or am I thinking NBA? It's him, right? He's bald. He looks like
That's the NBA.
Oh man.
That's the NBA commissioner, and I can't think of his name, but he does look like a thumb with glasses. That's so mean. Yeah, that's so mean. But it's
Roger Goodell, I always feel bad for him because he's always booed, but it's like historic. Like everybody has always booed him, but why?
Right. Okay. So he's the scapegoat. Okay. Just think about him as being like, he is the NFL logo, right? So he is the commissioner of the NFL, and he oversees everything having to do with the NFL, right? So all of the teams boo him for varying reasons, right? So like the Las Vegas Raiders are now the Las Vegas Raiders instead of the Oakland Raiders. So all of the Oakland Raiders fans will boo Roger Goodell because he approved the decision for the team to move to Las Vegas.
Ticket prices.
The Saints, for example, they will boo Roger Goodell because a few years back, there was a very controversial pass interference call and it wasn't called, and they since changed the rules, which Roger Goodell oversaw that. And if they would have had the rules back then the Saints fans think that the Saints would have won the Super Bowl. So it is one day, one time that everybody can be on the same page. That's right. No matter what team you cheer for, there is something that has happened to your team at some point that makes you want to stand up and just boo Roger Goodell.
You guys, you have to watch it. Just if you don't watch any of the draft, just watch the beginning. It's right at the beginning when he walks on stage.
It seriously is. It's amazing. It's just it's like you feel so connected with all of the other teams that you would otherwise cheer against because everybody is cheering against the exact same dude and Roger Goodell at the exact same time. And yes, it is a resounding boo. They clearly all feel the exact same way about him.
Yeah. So like I said, if you don't watch any other part of the draft, just watch the beginning. But so we have our last segment of this episode and we're going to save it for our special guest because we want her involved too. So Casey, are you there?
Hello.
What's up, Casey?
How are you guys?
Oh, good. How are you? I was going to say, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I have my coffee.
Nice.
West Coast time. I appreciate the early morning.
You know what? I have been waking up at 6:30 every morning since I moved out here.
Oh,
and
staying on East Coast time.
Yeah.
I always say, so our sister, Christina and I are sisters, right? So our sister lives in San Diego. And every time I go out there, I'm like, I'm going to stay on East Coast time and
have more of your day.
But it never happens for me. Like I just have way too much FOMO in general. Like
you're also a very good sleeper.
I stay up way too late. Anyway, so back to you. So you moved to California when?
So I moved from New York to California back in December because I was living with 3 roommates in this tiny shithole apartment in Soho.
Nice.
You know, the New York dream.
I was going to say, yep,
so
the historic New York story. Sounds about right.
And it's funny because you just tell people like, oh, what neighborhood? You're like, oh, I live in Soho. they don't need to know that, you're like in this shoebox apartment. But I didn't want to spend the winter in New York and everyone's working from home. It's like with COVID and everything, things were shut down.
Yeah.
So like, you know what? Let me move to California. And I didn't know anybody. I don't have family out here. So
Good for you, living the American dream, and look how it worked out for you. I feel like you are killing it out there. So we have Casey on this podcast, you guys, because if you have not gone and seen her videos, go right now, stop what you're doing and go to her Instagram and her TikTok. What's your handle? It's at
Casey Rieger 15 on Instagram, and TikTok is Casey Rieger 8.
You guys, Casey can throw a football better than most quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there right now.
Travis, my husband, was like, Sarah, y'all should do like a ball throwing competition between the two of you. And I was like,
yeah, right.
Why don't you go back and rewatch her videos, babe? Because there's literally a 0% chance my ball is going anywhere near where Casey's goes. So how did you learn to throw a rocket? Because it is very impressive.
Listen, I'm a natural athlete. Okay. No, I never had coaching or anything. I have 3 siblings.
Okay.
So that's how.
Yeah.
3 brothers.
I have a twin brother and then 2 older sisters. So they're 10 and 7 years older than I am. And then Chris and I were 14 minutes apart. So he's the baby. Yeah. But we would go and play in the front yard. We play volleyball, basketball in the driveway, throw the football back when kids didn't have phones and played outside.
Yeah, right. I know. And everybody wasn't terrified of your kids to get kidnapped. Like, I feel like now I have so many friends with babies and they're just like my dad it sounds like we're from the 1950s, but he would like walk out and like whistle and it was the dinner bell, right? Like, oh, time for dinner. Like dad's whistling us. Now everybody stays inside and plays Fortnite and does TikTok dances. So
but when did you decide to start doing trick shots with the football?
So if you go back to my old stuff on TikTok, it's mostly like, trending videos, dancing, silly little like comedy sketches, whatever, what no one is interested in, right? It's like you get no views. It's just more like creative fulfillment, putting yourself out there. Yeah. And then I went home to Charlotte for Easter and was like, you know what, let me just go, because I want to do a little workout. So I went and ran the track and then had the football in the trunk. I was like, let me throw the football in the playground area. And then
I saw that one.
That was the first one.
What park were you at?
I was at Elizabeth Lane.
Okay.
Elementary.
Yes.
You guys, I don't know if you heard her, but Casey said that she went home to Charlotte, North Carolina. Represent, baby.
704.
Yes, let's go.
Listen, I'm a Charlottean.
Casey, I really curious about your like visibility on just Instagram specifically. To be honest, I need to be better about TikTok, but I know from the second that I started following you, you had like 2,000 followers and like what felt like a week later, you're like almost at like 10,000. So
you know what's so funny is my sister literally goes and like refreshes it on the daily.
That sounds like
you
me.
see, like you're almost at 10. I'm like, girl, like,
get
you
off.
know,
Get off. But huge accomplishment, because coming from somebody who, like, Christina and I started our Instagram when we started the podcast back in October, and we don't even have 1,000 followers, but it's hard work.
We had no idea how hard social media is.
It's so hard. And Instagram especially is unique because TikTok, this is why I love TikTok, is because anyone on the platform has the same opportunity to go viral.
Yeah.
And Instagram, it's so oversaturated. So it's like you really have to be doing the most to get any kind of like growth.
Right. Absolutely. So you went viral on both was it the playground video or was it the making the ball in the basketball goal video?
It was the basketball goal, shutting down the haters.
Got it. Yes.
Yes. And then you had a lot of people reach out to you from that, right?
Ton of people. Like there was 4 or 5 days where my DMs were just litty.
We were in that.
Yeah, you guys slid in. You slid in.
We slid right on into that.
Yeah. I was like, I have to get this girl on the podcast. She said this was for Sir Purr. And for those of you that don't know, Sir Purr is the mascot for the Carolina Panthers. So are you a Carolina Panthers fan? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So are we. Obviously, we talked about that.
Sir Purr, it took him, he responded after like a week.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, where you been?
I know, seriously, took you a while. But I keep telling Casey that because the Panthers had reached out. I think you're trying to, like, the Rams had reached out, right? And they said that they're social media, whatever. And so you're trying to get on like the social media team with the Rams. But the Panthers commented on the feed and said, we have a pretty good social media team. And so I'm like, Casey, why don't you move back to Charlotte and let's collab?
Wouldn't that be so awesome?
So fun.
I saw that and I was like, where were y'all at when I was looking for a job after college?
Yes, I know. It's funny how it happened so quickly. So back to your DMs, I'm curious. Did you have any, let's say, trap daddies or what's another word for it? Anybody who was a little thirsty sliding into your DMs?
Quite a few, actually. Quite
I'm sure.
Few.
Can we hear some of them?
So my favorite ones were these straight women. They'd slide in and they'd be like, listen, I got a husband, I got kids, but like, I'm still down. I'm still down if you're down. I was like, what? And then
wait, like the woman was reaching out for herself or for her husband?
For herself.
Wow.
Like, okay. I'm totally straight. I'm married. Like I'm, off the market, but like for you. So
that's flattering.
Very flattering, right?
I was going to say, I don't know what I would respond to that besides
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, girl.
Thanks
so much.
So flattering. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And then what was another one? I love you. Will you marry me? Got a couple of those.
Oh, yes. Did you say yes to any of them?
Most of them. Yeah. I had this. Okay. My Supergirl, my American dream, my future wife. She is way out of my league.
Wow.
Yes,
sounds like a line to like a really good rap song. Like somebody needs to pick that up.
Right?
Yeah, Sarah, I like that.
I like that too, actually. That's a vibe.
It's lyrically genius for sure. So obviously we talked about how you went from like, I mean, your following has increased like crazy. My husband was showing me your videos on on Snapchat. Because
oh my gosh, yeah.
Did you see on Snapchat too? Like, I don't know.
It was on SportsCenter on Snapchat and Overtime.
What? Isn't that crazy?
I know. That is so cool.
SportsCenter, like, how did they reach out, right? Are they just like, do they slide into your DMs too? And they're like, hey, can we use this?
Yeah, they slid in my Instagram DMs, which I feel like is the most central location for people to reach out. Overtime. So I screen recorded Overtime because this girl who was doing the voiceover from the videos, she was hyping me up Like I've watched that video a million times, and every time after, I'm like, damn, like I am a badass.
You
Let's
are,
go.
yes.
Hell yeah.
But
watch it every
I
morning
remember-
with your coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I took a lot of videos, like B-roll footage of me freaking out in the car. Like, you know, ESPNW reached out and then they added me as one of their reels on their page. And I'm like, it's overwhelming and it's so freaking exciting. It's so cool. Like Billie Jean King followed me. She put me on her story. I was like,
that's amazing.
What?
That is so great.
So have
that is
we
so
gone,
great.
has anybody reached out and been like, we want to work with you? Like, here's a job. Because I know you sent your resume in didn't you like send it to the Rams? And where are you at, Rams?
Rams, where you at?
Yeah.
Rams, where you at?
Yeah,
Did they ever come back?
seriously. We're going to need to clip this, Christine, so she can post it on her feed too. Rams.
Holla, 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 Rams.
Rams.
Hello.
Where y'all at?
Okay,
Hear
so
you.
moving on, I wanted to bring you on because obviously we said earlier you are and could be a quarterback in the NFL if you wanted to, like right now, just because of your throwing skills. Not just like the arm strength, but the accuracy is just
The spiral is
amazing.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
So yeah, you just need us to hype you up. Who needs the lady from Overtime? Just put us on Zoom in the morning and we'll hype you up all that you need.
Yes.
But that being said, this year we talked about the NFL draft before you hopped on and just kind of broke it all down for everybody, what it is, who's going into the draft, and who to look out for this year. So there are quite a few quarterbacks this year, and we were wondering, we don't need to go through a full like 1 through 32 mock draft, but I think we're all under the agreement that Trevor Lawrence is most likely going number 1. But then do you have an opinion on who is going number 2 and number 3?
I think number 2 is going to be Mac Jones.
Yeah.
For sure. Roll Tide Roll.
Yes. Okay.
Bama.
Did you go to Bama?
No.
Oh.
I've just seen a lot of his footage. I think he's a boss.
Yes.
Sharpshooter.
People are hating on him. They're saying he is, because he doesn't have like the legs and the agility that a lot of these, other guys that are coming out of BYU, Ohio State, there's one guy from North Dakota State do, that he's not going to get some people were saying he wasn't even going to get drafted in the first round.
Oh, boo. That's
I don't know about all that.
That's not going to happen.
I know. I think he's going to go to San Francisco, who is, I'm not sure where they are. I want to say they're like 6th or 7th or something. I think the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson, who went to BYU.
And it's funny because you and I typically never pick the same, but I have Zach Wilson going number 2 and Mac Jones going number 3.
You do think Mac Jones is going number 3? Yeah. I don't even know who's picking number 3. What team? I want to say
49ers.
Is it the 49ers? Well, then I do have Mac Jones going number 3 too.
Oh, Sarah, that's so crazy. We never ever pick the same.
I know. How insane. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Thursday night, 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. So 5:00 your time. That has to be weird. Everything is 3 hours earlier.
Yeah, I'm still not used to it.
I wouldn't be used to it either. I wouldn't be used to it.
Whenever I'm ready to like FaceTime my family, they're already asleep. They're already in bed. It's like tricky.
I can imagine. Well, I know from my parents' experience, we've been trying to convince my sister who lives in San Diego to move back to Charlotte since she moved out there. So now that we know you, we're going to be doing the same thing. You've got to come back to Charlotte soon. And when you are,
and I got a job offer too. I'm like, okay. Right?
Something's pulling you back east, right? Mm-hmm. Something's pulling you back east.
You'll have to let us know when you're back in Charlotte, but we cannot thank you enough for being on our podcast today. And that wraps up this week's episode of It's Sports Sis. We love you guys. Follow us on Instagram. Follow Casey on Instagram, TikTok, and all of the social media platforms. And we'll also repost her on our story for you guys. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.